This is Mihaela, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the exhibition that is currently going on here, about the context and what it is you're trying to achieve. Mihaela.
Yes, so we've got two installations here today. We've got the Tree of Life, which we've developed with the communities affected by the tsunami in Japan. And we have a picture of life, picture of a health installation, which was developed with the communities in Stoke-on-Trent. Both projects use a kind of co-design way of working with communities and a cultural animation methodology, which was pioneered by the New Vic Theatre. And Sue Moffat here from the New Vic Theatre can tell you more about the way in which we work with these communities. Perhaps I can spend a bit of time telling you about the Tree of Life, which is a metaphor for endurance, for life. This is part of the Bridging the Gap between academic rigour and community relevance grant. We worked, first of all, with the communities in Stoke-on-Trent, and we took their stories of survival, hope, resilience, loss to Japan. The metaphor that we used and the cultural prop that was used there was the Tree of Life, which when it arrived there was bare. It didn't have any leaves, any stories. And then we worked with people in temporary accommodation, people who were displaced for 2.5 years, to actually create this installation which brings alive their stories, their hopes for the future and the vitality of the place.
Let me just make sure that we can get that on camera. Do you have the Tree of Life? Looks really great. Cool, sorry.
I think Sue will probably be in a better position to tell you more about the way we worked with these communities in Japan, because it is a methodology that we've used. It's called cultural animation. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Sue, tell us a little bit about your end.
Right, so we work from the New Vic Theatre, and our kind of style of drama is documentary drama. But quite often when people have become traumatised or communities have been kind of devastated, whether it's been through a long economic decline where your traditional kind of relationship with things like coal, steel and pots has been wiped out, or it's been a very quick devastation, communities get very stuck. They feel like they've lost everything and they are kind of left in a state of stasis, really. They can't plan for the future. They don't know what the future looks like. So our way of working really is to create an environment where they can begin to discover what they still have. So to look through bringing objects and things where people can kind of respond to the ordinary things of life, teapots, cups and saucers, and through those begin to tell stories and to remember something about themselves. And through then creating with the materials we have around some of those stories from the past, bringing them into the present, they recognise what it is that they have to take with them into the future. And so, for instance, in the displaced people's communities, in the temporary accommodation in the tsunami affected area, those people for 2.5 years when we went had just been waiting to move from their temporary accommodation to get on to with the rest of their lives. There was a real kind of air of depression and stillness, and people were very anxious about the well-being of the people living there. And actually, you know, we were anxious because it's a very different community, very traumatised. But when we got in and we brought the Tree of Life to them and we said to them, you know, this tree has lost its stories. And it's very sad, and we need you to create stories to give back to it. The whole room just became filled with life, singing, literally singing, dancing. Old ladies who'd never had dolls when they were children, making dolls and giving the dolls names. People telling stories of their fishing families and the huge fish that they caught, classic fishermen's tales that travel the world. But from when we went in, the stillness and the sadness was replaced with their own energy, not with us. And I think that's what's important. It's not about us being there. It's about what we bring and then enable people to discover about themselves. And so the installation really is just a small representation of their energies, their ambitions, and also they asked us to promise to take their story wherever we went so that other communities in the future would be prepared if some kind of disaster struck them. So not to wait for a devastation to happen, but to think about who is important in your community, what would you save, what is it that you can take forward into the future if something suddenly takes things away from you. So.
And how many people are in the team that went out there?
Right, so Mihaela from Keele University and Anita, Dr. Anita Mangum from Keele. We also had other partners from the Open University, and other community partners like Glasshouse Community Design and Brunel University. So the New Vic Theatre is a community partner of Keele, and Keele was the lead in this project, but actually the other universities as well and their community partners were also part of the workshops that took place in Japan. And now what's great is that each of those partners, academic and communities, are taking those stories back into their own communities, and so there's a real legacy of this kind of way of working, and it doesn't stop at the end of the project. And I think that's what's fabulous about the Connected Communities programme, is that the AHRC fund an initiative, but actually even beyond the end of those initiatives, the projects carry on and the ambition to keep connecting continues. So. And
so do you go back again, or are you showing people how to create their own tree of life?
Yeah, so this tree of life now has been to so many places. It was in Rome last week. Where else has it? It's been to Canada, so went to Vancouver, and people in Vancouver responded to the stories from Japan and then added their own stories to the tree. It went to Rotherham for Holocaust Memorial Day, and kids from the Roma community actually looked at the Tree of Life and connected to it and made their own sense and created their own stories around it.
And not to take away from obviously the massive impact that the tsunami had, but this kind of thing seems to me to be very applicable to a whole range of dislocated communities. So how small would a community have to be that this wouldn't work? Anybody? We have been into small sheltered housing schemes where, there's a small number of residents who are so similar actually to the people in the displaced temporary accommodation, where suddenly they've had to give up their homes and their lives and move to somewhere else. And actually the installation, that really joins together with the picture of health story, because the installation actually shows the story of an older person who wants to stay in their home. They want their life around them, and quite often because of the red tape that exists around health and social care, people end up moved away and put into places which they don't consider home. So actually there's a real connection. It's very difficult to consider that old age or illness might become a devastation in the same ways as tsunami is, but actually the stories that people tell, the things that are important to them, the things they want to keep hold of in their lives, really connect those massive kind of macro stories with those very personal individual stories. And I think that's what's so very exciting about the way that this works. We can work with whole communities. So we were at locality action camp a couple of weeks ago. There were 400 community organisers who participated, not all of 400 of them, I have to say, but a number of people participated in a cultural animation workshop and looked at how they could take those ideas back into their communities of action, and I think it's a really powerful way of working, and the relationship between the theatre and the university not only allows us to do important work, but also through the academic side make sense of why it's important and to write it in such a way that it becomes transferable, if you like. And I think that's what's very valuable as well.
And these, and forgive me because I haven't come across these before, but the installation, when you go to somewhere like Japan, the installation is being put into a local theatre, or is it put into a village hall, or whatever's left standing?
Well, actually, you're right. By asking the question about whatever's left standing, the first place that we did the workshops in Japan was in a shopping street that had been devastated. So where it had once upon a time been a very thriving kind of shopping malls, businesses doing very well, there was nothing. There were a couple of prefab sort of units where people had begun to try to bring a business back. And we spent one of our workshops just out there with people from that community. And for instance, the big red fish that you can see there was made by a local fisherman as he told his story of hope and what he would bring back. So we're literally out in the public in a street where people randomly could come across us and then begin to share their stories and create things. So a lot of the images on the tree now are photographs taken from those workshops. So those people are present in new communities. But we also went into like a community hall in part of the temporary accommodation. And so people from the local temporary accommodation came in. And what was great was at first it was very polite and very still, and there weren't that many people there, but the word got out. So at the beginning of the afternoon it was very quiet. By the end of the afternoon there were loads of people in there, all having a great time and not wanting to leave. And what we were able to do was we left materials there. People knew what to do. They could continue after we left. And I think, again, that's what the ambition is. That.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is one of two, isn't it? There's another one called Picture of Health.
This is the Picture of Health.
Okay.
Kind of entrance here. This is the red tape. If you want to get your health, you have to go through it.
Your audience is just there.
This is the Picture of Health, and it is another AHRC co-design project, and we worked with Kindle Partnerships, and Margaret is here to tell you more about it. But just to give you a bit of theoretical background on the way we work with the theatre and other community partners like Kindle Partnerships, we always look for ways in which knowledge and practice could come together. So experience is the starting point of any kind of process of inquiry. And this is something we've developed at Keele for over 10 years. It's American pragmatism, which basically says that experience is the starting point of any knowledge, and the two of them are intertwined. You can't do one without another. So the skills and the expertise that people bring to these workshops around health, around identity, around resilience are as important as reading about the issues in various publications. So on this project about health, we work with Kindle Partnerships, and Margaret here is an expert on health. We've invited communities from Stoke-on-Trent to come and tell us what they think their health, their good health is all about, and how they would tell the government that they have good health. The resulting exhibition is this Picture of Health, which is a house, but we didn't quite have the space to actually bring the whole of it. But the idea would be that through red tape you get inside and then you discover what good health is. And I'll pass you over to Margaret, who can tell you a few more stories around the way we worked with...
Thank you. Margaret, so tell us a little bit more about it.
All right, so we were part of a project called Unearthing Hidden Assets, and in our experience of working with local people who want to influence health services, very often that's done around a boring table. And so I've worked with Mihaela and with Sue for nearly 20 years and know that these techniques that you've just heard about really do engage people, bring out the best in them, kind of help them to discover things that they didn't know about themselves, and in those conversations and through these animated activities help them to express what they think needs to change. So what we did was we ran 4 workshops over 18 months, and maybe only 12 to 15 people got involved, but through that process, what we were able to discover is that they found their own hidden assets, and very often that was about their resilience and their inner beliefs and their values and what they wanted out of the health service, which very often is prescribed and not tailored to meet the kind of needs that they think are important to people when they think about what their health is. And so we were able to demonstrate through the workshops that by using these techniques, people could express both what health means to them what they want from health services and what they would like to tell the government about how those services should be designed and run for the future. And it was absolutely fascinating. People got so much out of it personally, both in confidence and in terms of, yes, expressing their health needs, but also thinking for themselves about where their own futures lie. And so what we experienced was people's lives changing. A young woman who came with a difficult background found so much confidence that she's now gone to university and wants to train in social practice. I mean, you know, that was just at one scale. And another end of the scale was an older person who just came along because his friend said, oh, come, you know, this might be interesting. And he didn't know what he was coming to. But through the whole process of being engaged in the workshops, said, I just want to be involved in theatre. And 2 weeks ago, he was involved in a professional performance at the New Vic. So journeys are what people go on through these experiences. And I think it's much more animated than sitting around a table and professionals in grey suits asking you your opinion. Actually, by using these techniques, what people do is express that opinion far more dynamically.
Yeah, I'm sure that the sort of just trying to think about how you would change government opinion on something, the view from most people in the street must be that this is an enormous monolithic structure, and the health service is very complex, and they think the only route in is through their GP. Is that right?
Absolutely. All of those things, dead right. And what these are techniques are trying to do, and using the academic perspectives with writing the papers that we're learning about how to use these techniques, hopefully help us to put this on a different plane. And so my colleague, who's a public health consultant, doctor, academic, working with Mihaela and with Sue, what we're able to do in the near future is write up all the evidence that we've found through using these techniques, publish papers, and hopefully put it on a conference platform in the near future and try to start to engage decision makers in a completely different way with local people and their opinions. Massive journey, we understand that, but we think we've made small steps but with big impact to be able to try to influence the way in which local people's voices can be heard to influence. Yeah, you have to start somewhere, and so we think this is as good a place as any to catch.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Mihaela, one last word. We're running out of time here. How can people find out more?
We've got websites, we've got a podcast, but also I think I'd like to emphasize that we are lucky that the AHRC is funding this work because it's high risk, it's very creative, and it allows us to use our imagination, creativity, and a different way of working with our communities. This notion that, you know, it's not just expertise and intellect, it's also experience and skills and commonsensical intelligence that's important to knowledge creation. So we're very fortunate that we can explore working with communities in the way that we do. We are publishing papers, we have got websites, we have got podcasts and films. They can email me, m.l.kelemen@keele.ac.uk. I'll be pleased to send them more information. And really it's exciting to be here and to be sharing and disseminating the knowledge so far.
Thank you very much indeed.